Hey guys, so in this video, we're going to be learning pretty much everything there is to learn about Mucuna Pruriens and how you can use it today in order to raise dopamine levels. So let's jump right in. Hey guys, welcome to Nutrition Library, your trusted resource for an evidence-based approach to supplementation. If you haven't already, I would definitely recommend hitting the red subscribe button that's below this video and then hitting that thumbs up button for us as well so that we can get this content out to those that might be interested in it. Thank you so much. All right guys, so in this video specifically, we're going to be covering how Mucuna Pruriens raises dopamine levels and so how it does that biochemically in the body. And then we're going to talk about the 4 primary health benefits that are associated with increased dopamine production. Now, at the end of this video, we're going to be talking about some of the more significant side effects that are associated with Mucuna Pruriens. So you definitely want to stick to the end of the video for that. And so the first thing we want to understand is that Mucuna Pruriens is simply just a bean or a legume that is native to Africa that has been taken for thousands of years for its ability to increase libido and increase energy. But nowadays, it's primarily taken in order to increase the production of dopamine in the body, and it's actually remarkably effective at doing so. Now, in this study right here, there were 75 men that went through this particular study, and what they found at the end of the study was that the individuals that were infertile actually responded remarkably well to Mucuna therapy. Now, one thing that they measured at the end of the study was actually dopamine production. And what they found was that there was a significant increase in dopamine production in these infertile men. And it was actually across the board. And so there wasn't a single participant that actually went through this study that didn't experience the benefits of taking Mucuna and experience the benefits of increased dopamine production. And now, again, this is the only study that we have in clinical research that specifically studied the amount of dopamine in the participants that went through this study. However, we do have a host of research that has been done in animal models, and it unequivocally increases dopamine production across the board in both humans and rat studies. And so there is a fairly high confidence level in Mucuna's ability to increase dopamine production. And the reason for that is because it contains a molecule in it known as L-Dopa. Now, L-Dopa is actually an immediate precursor to dopamine production in the body. And so typically your body takes the amino acid tyrosine or phenylalanine that you get through your diet and takes it through a metabolic process and turns it into dopamine. And one of the metabolic intermediates in that process is known as L-Dopa. And so this bean in particular actually has that molecule isolated as a compound in it. And so a lot of these companies nowadays are actually taking Mucuna and just simply isolating the L-Dopa out of it at say like 5 to 15 to even 95% L-Dopa and then selling it in supplemental form. But not only does Mucuna contain the compound L-Dopa, which is an immediate precursor to dopamine, it also contains some unknown compounds that actually inhibit the breakdown of dopamine. And so it kind of has this dual effect in its ability to raise dopamine levels by, one, providing the immediate precursor for dopamine and then also inhibiting on the back end its breakdown. And so again, it has this dual effect in its ability to be able to raise dopamine levels in the body. Now, the 4 primary health benefits of taking Mucuna and supplementing with a compound like L-Dopa are: 1, reduced symptoms of Parkinson's; 2, hormone optimization; 3, cognitive enhancement; and then the 4th health benefit is that it actually improves fertility. Now, the first health benefit, again, is that it improves the symptoms of Parkinson's disease. Now, this study right here actually showed that Mucuna supplementation was a more effective treatment for the disease of Parkinson's and the symptoms of Parkinson's than actually the pharmaceutical compound known as Levodopa. Now, Levodopa is simply the molecule L-Dopa pharmaceutically and synthetically produced, and so it is literally the purest form of L-Dopa. And so one of the reasons that I'm so surprised at this study is that the natural herb and compound that is found in Mucuna had a better result on every parameter of Parkinson's symptoms when compared to the gold standard of Parkinson's treatment, which is Levodopa. Now, the reason for this is because, again, Mucuna is so effective at increasing dopamine levels, and Parkinson's is a disease that has been associated and is known for low dopamine production, and more specifically, actually kind of the degradation of the entire dopamine system. And so supplementing with Mucuna or taking Levodopa is the gold standard for Parkinson's treatment because it increases dopamine levels and helps to keep the dopamine neurotransmitter system within the central nervous system and the brain specifically in a more healthy state. Now, the second health benefit of supplementing with Mucuna is that it actually improves hormone function. Now, going back to the initial study that we had referenced in infertile men that were taking Mucuna throughout the length of the study, the researchers not only measured dopamine production and how much Mucuna increased dopamine levels, but they also measured testosterone levels. And what they found was that Mucuna unequivocally increased testosterone levels alongside of dopamine production. Now, Mucuna is able to do this by stimulating the HPG axis. Now, in this study, they also measured luteinizing hormone, which is a hormone that gets released by the HPG axis. And so within the hypothalamus and the pituitary, they kind of coordinate together to release luteinizing hormone, which is a hormone that acts on the testicles to stimulate testosterone production. Now, in other studies, and specifically within some in vitro studies, Mucuna also showed the capacity and the ability to suppress prolactin production. And prolactin has a direct effect on testosterone and a direct suppressatory effect on testosterone production. And so when prolactin levels increase, testosterone levels generally decrease. And so Mucuna's ability to suppress prolactin levels actually gives it its ability to also increase testosterone levels beyond just its ability to also increase luteinizing hormone. And so when you combine all of these factors together, it is abundantly clear that Mucuna has a positive regulatory function when it comes to optimizing hormone production. Now, the third health benefit of Mucuna pruriens is that it optimizes cognitive function. Now, I actually had a tough time picking out a specific research paper to demonstrate dopamine's effectiveness at increasing cognitive output, because there are just so many well-conducted studies that show and demonstrate dopamine's ability to regulate cognitive performance and function. Increased dopamine levels are associated with increased executive function, motivational thought patterns, working memory, and cognitive performance and attention in countless studies. And so when it comes to compounds specifically, and specifically neurotransmitter precursors that you can take in order to optimize cognitive performance, L-Dopa is one of the most potent compounds that you can take in order to accomplish those goals. Now, there are some risks that are associated with consuming this compound because it is so potent, but we'll get into that later on in the video. Now, the fourth health benefit that's associated with Mucuna intake is that it increases fertility. Now, in this study right here, there were 60 individuals that went through the study, and what they found was that there was a significant decrease in the physiological effects of stress, and it completely ameliorated the effects of stress on fertility. And the researchers were actually hypothesizing that it didn't even have so much to do with the L-Dopa compound that's found in Mucuna, but that it had more to do with the antioxidant effects of Mucuna consumption. So not only does mucuna have a positive effect on the HPG axis and helping to stimulate testosterone production in the Leydig cells of the testes, but it also has an antioxidant effect on the testicles in particular that, one, helps to increase testosterone production, but also to improve sperm quality and motility. Now, when it comes to dosing mucuna, I would highly recommend taking as little as possible in order to get the desired effects that you have personally. Now, dosage completely depends on your personal biochemistry and stress level and what your life looks like, but a rough estimate is anywhere between 50 milligrams and even up to a gram. Now, I would highly recommend staying away from that gram unless you have something like Parkinson's. But for someone like myself who does not have Parkinson's or even a family history of Parkinson's, I can take as little as 30 milligrams and still notice some of the benefits of mucuna intake. So for those of you that are out there that are considering taking or adding mucuna to your supplement regimen, I would recommend starting as low as 25 milligrams, specifically of L-Dopa, not of the entire herb, but because most people are going to be consuming mucuna for the L-Dopa content, you really want to try to dose as closely as possible to the L-Dopa content specifically. Now, when it comes to the time of day that you want to take it, I would highly recommend taking it only in the morning and in the afternoon, as higher levels of dopamine in the evening time have been shown to get processed into epinephrine, which is essentially adrenaline. And so increasing adrenaline in the evening time is not going to be a great idea because it is going to disrupt your sleep patterns. Now, because mucuna is such a potent herb, there are a few other things I want to kind of briefly talk about, and those are essentially the pitfalls to avoid with taking mucuna. And the first pitfall that you want to avoid is taking it too often. Now, I would highly recommend taking mucuna pretty much every other day, because if you increase dopamine levels too quickly and too often, it will down-regulate the density of the dopamine receptors that you have on your neurons, which essentially makes you less sensitive to dopamine. And so you really want to avoid that, because when that sets in, dependency also tends to set in. And now you really want to avoid dependency on something like this, because when you get dependent on something, a compound, a pharmaceutical, food, I mean, really anything, it's a sign that you're causing damage to neurons and receptors in your body, and you really want to avoid that. What we want with taking mucuna is to increase dopamine levels every so often in order to improve the dopamine system, not to damage it. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about real quick are some of the side effects that you want to look out for, which are things like nervousness and antsiness and nausea even. If you begin to get some of those feelings almost like you've drank too much coffee, I would definitely recommend stepping down some of your intake of Dopa. Again, you really don't want to increase dopamine levels too fast, too quickly, and too often, because it will damage the dopamine system over time. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please do me a favor and leave them down below. I try to do my best at answering every single question that you guys put down there. So again, if you have any questions, leave them down below and I'll be in contact with you as soon as possible. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you next time.